If you love pork chops, we got a great recipe coming up for you right now on the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Well, howdy y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show, hosted by yours truly, Chef Ron Locke. On this episode, we're going to be cooking up some fantastic pork chops for y'all. Now, there's gotta be at least hundreds of different pork chop recipes out there, and I'll bet you some of y'all out there probably have at least one or two in your cooking arsenal that you pull out for your family, friends, and loved ones every once in a while. Am I right? Well, we have a special treat for you on this episode because we're going to be making up a fantastically unique pork chop recipe that's going to take a little bit of a sweet taste and a little bit of a heat taste or a spicy taste. And that's going to be the sealing on top of our pork chops. I'm going to walk you through all that step by step here as we go through. But on this episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show, we're going to be making for you tropical pork chops, alright? So, let's go ahead and first show you what's going into that tropical pork chop recipe by going over to our ingredient roundup right over here and show you what we're making with it. Alright, let's do this. Okay, first off we've got here 2 boneless pork chops. And what I do is I leave a little bit of the fat on because I like that flavor when you're cooking them. At the end you can go ahead and cut the fat off or whatever you want to do, but I like to leave the fat on. It's not that much and it really makes a better flavor at the end. I know a lot of people will go ahead and trim the fat off first, but I think you're losing out there if you do that. Alright, so just a little tip from me to you on that. Next off we've got here 1 medium onion that has been sliced thin. We're going to be layering that on a little bit later on our pork chops. Next here we've got 2 cups of salsa. And you can use regular salsa, chunky salsa, whatever you'd like. We're using a little bit of a chunky salsa here. Now, what I usually do is I'll go ahead and take a couple 12-ounce jars of salsa from the shelf at the grocery store, and I will go ahead then just pour them into a bowl. You only want to use a couple cups at first to put on top of your pork chops before you put them in the oven. And then what I do is I save the rest of it either to put on the top when they've cooled off at the end of the baking period, or I'll use it as a side so people can use it as a dip or whatever they want if they want to dip their pork chops into the salsa. So you'll see what we're going to do with that as well. So, you know, but you want to use 2 cups initially for the top, the top sealing of your pork chops, and we'll again show you that here in a bit. Alright, we've got here 2 cups of sliced mushrooms, and we've got here a 1/2 cup of orange marmalade. Now that on top of the salsa that we're going to mix up for you in a bit, it's just going to be yee haw yum. You wait and see on that. And lastly, we've got here a mixture of salt, pepper, and onion powder. That's a teaspoon of each. That's going to go on to the pork chops in our frying stage. And that's what we're going to be doing here in the next segment. And we're going to take a little break here, set things up, because we're going to mosey on over to our stove here and fry us up lightly brown some pork chops to get ready for our baking dish and our toppings that we're going to be putting on this in just a little bit. So you want to come on back and check this out, alright? Alright.
You are watching WYE the Network.
Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now you can see we've moseyed on over to our stovetop here and we're zoomed into our pan. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and take our 2 pork chops and lightly brown them on either side just to get them a nice brown coating before we put them into our baking dish that I'll show you here in just a little bit. So you see we've got our pan here. I've gone ahead and put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. Now that was our last ingredient that we needed to introduce to you, but I thought we'd just wait and do it while we had the pan here. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and introduce to you our pork chops here, like so, like that. Now you want to put the heat on medium while you're doing this. Okay, get our other one in there, and it's only going to be a couple minutes. It's only only going to be a couple minutes that you need to keep them on. You just want to get them lightly brown. So we're going to go ahead and take our seasoning and put a little bit of that on top of our pork chops here. Our salt, pepper, and onion powder mixture that we had here. Just like that. Alright, I want to save a little bit for the other side. Now we'll just go ahead and let these cook up for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll flip them over. Again, we just want to get these nicely brown. And the reason I wanted to show y'all this is because I know a lot of y'all out there know how to do this. This is pretty cooking 101, I'd say, culinary 101. There's a few of you out there that I know that appreciate our taking it step by step with y'all, because some of y'all have never either been in the kitchen to really do any cooking, or you're very insecure about it. You haven't really done it much, and you want to kind of see how it's all done. And a lot of times these little tutorials help out. So that's why we're going to just do this up here real quick for y'all. Like I said, it'll just take a couple minutes. We're probably almost at the minute point now. So, well, I'll tell you what. Again, you know, when I first started cooking, I can remember I was 8 years old when I was first able to start using skillets and stuff to make things with. I think my first thing I made was hamburgers. I remember my mama actually, she kind of supervised it, but I actually made hamburgers the first time when I was 7 years old, and you know, that was the first experience, and you kind of go from there. But you know, it really helps when you're able to see it and work with it. So I mean, that's just really important. Okay. And you just want to, when you're doing this, just check underneath a little bit to see if they're getting brown. Now see, right now we've got a nice white coating on, but we want these to brown up just a little bit more. So it may take another minute or two. And if you find it's not taking as long, you can just bump your heat up maybe about another half of a setting on your stove. But I wouldn't do any more than that. Medium is really where you want to go. You start getting into medium high, you're going to sear and burn these. And then you start getting into searing. And we don't really want to sear these on this recipe. Now they're just starting to get a little brown on the edges here. And you know what? That might be alright too. I don't want to get them too burnt out here. And you just got to move them around a little bit just in case they don't stick. Now this pan here does not have Teflon on it. So this is the kind of pan you really have to kind of keep an eye on. If you got a non-stick surface, sometimes that works too. Now you see this oil's popping a little bit, and you're going to get that sometimes. So you got to be careful. Don't stand over the top of this, because you could seriously get some oil popping into your face or your eyes. That would not be a good thing. Trust me, I've had it happen to me one time. It's not pleasant. It is not pleasant at all. All right, let me see here. All right, that's good. Just lightly brown on the sides. I'm going to flip these over now. Just like that. I'm going to put some more seasoning on. Like that. There we go. Just like that. Now see, it's popping. Again, you need to be a little careful. There, just like that. Alright, that's good. Now, when we come back, I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. When we come back, we're going to have our seared here, or our lightly browned pork chops waiting for us. And we're also going to go ahead and start mixing up our salsa and orange marmalade mixture that we're going to be putting on top of these in our baking dish. So you don't want to miss that, alright? So come on back.
Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now, before we begin our next segment here, I just want to talk, like I always do in every episode, about kitchen hygiene. You want to make sure that your countertops, your work areas in your kitchen are nice and clean. You want to make sure your hands are also nice and clean. We're going to go up here and roll up our sleeves and get to work here, because we've got some fantastic flavors that we're going to be mixing up for you here in just a moment. And what we're going to do here in this segment is we're going to go ahead and take our salsa that we have here and our orange marmalade that we have here, and we're going to go ahead and just mix those together. It's real simple. Just take your half cup of orange marmalade, get yourself like a tablespoon here, and just go ahead and pour that into your bigger bowl of your salsa. So the object here is to get a bigger bowl for your salsa to be able to put the marmalade in, so you can just mix it up in one bowl. That way you got to dirty another bowl to put two things in together. See, it's a little smart little tip there from Chef Ron Locke here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and stir this all up now. Smooth this in a little bit, like so. It's real simple. You can get your kids involved in this one. This is definitely cooking 101 here. Just mix it all up nice and good like. Now, the objective here is that we've got that salsa, that spicy salsa. Now I'm using mild here, but you can go ahead and use medium or hot, whatever your palate can handle.
for salsa. And then we've got this orange marmalade that's got this really tropical orange taste to it. And these two, when you combine the flavors, I'm telling you what, especially when we bake this in with our pork chops, it's going to be yee haw yum, let me tell you. Alright, well, let's get going here. We're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break, and we're going to go ahead and set up. We're going to introduce to you our lightly browned pork chops in our baking dish, and we're going to start layering some fantastic ingredients on top of that. Alright, so come on back. Well, welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now, you can see right here we have our two lightly browned and seasoned boneless pork chops in our 8x8 inch baking dish. So y'all want to use an 8x8 inch baking dish for this recipe, alright? And what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and start layering on top of our pork chops the remaining ingredients that we have for this recipe. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and take a spoon here, and we're going to use this spoon, and we're going to go ahead and just spoon our salsa orange marmalade mixture on top of our pork chops. So I'm going to slide my bowl over here, and that's all we're going to do, because I don't want to get this all over the place. It's a little runny here, and just start putting it on top. You want to completely cover, let me do it that way so my camera can get it. You want to completely cover the entire area of your pork chops. Alright, you're going to have plenty of extra salsa here for topping at the end when you take these out of the oven, and also for dipping as well for your guest when you cook this up. It's going to be fantastic. I'm telling you what, I'm smelling flavors right now. This hasn't even gotten in the oven, and I'm smelling some fantastic peppers, and I'm smelling that orange marmalade, and I'm smelling the tomatoes, and just there's just so much goodness going on. Now you just see how I'm just putting it on. I don't want to overdo it, but I want to get enough to layer the bottom of this baking dish completely. Alright? And I want to get as much of the chunky goodness out of this as I can to do that with. And we're just about done here. I think one more spoon's going to do it right there. Alright, that's perfect. What you want to do is you want to smother your pork chops. Now the reason we're doing that is because we want to create a nice roof on top of these pork chops to keep those nice juices and flavors in. You know, we went to the trouble to go ahead and lightly brown those and to give them some great herbs, some great spices with the salt and the pepper and the onion powder. Now we just want to protect that a little bit and give it even a little more of a kick to it by putting some of these extra ingredients on it. We're going to be covering this, and which is important, and I'll get to that in a second, but that's why you want to make sure that you've got a liberal amount on top of your pork chops. Alright, so we got plenty, like I said, we got plenty of salsa left over for the end, and I'll get to that when we get to our final presentation. Alright, now next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and wash my hands, because I'm going to be playing in the food a little bit. Don't I always? So alright, there we go. Clean hands, very important in the kitchen. Remember that. There we go. Alright, so next we have our onions. I want to go ahead and put in on top here, just lay, you're going to go ahead and lay these slices of onion just on top, just like I'm doing here. Let me move over here again. And, you know, say if some of them break in the middle or whatever, it's fine. There we go. Because our mushrooms are going to go on top of these anyway. We're going to get to that in a second. I love mushrooms. I know some of y'all probably don't. I love them. I didn't like them when I was a little kid. Now, I didn't like them until I was probably in my teens. And I can't remember exactly what recipe it was that my mama made. I think I don't remember what it was. I don't remember. But I think it was beef stroganoff or something. I don't remember. But it was something that had mushrooms in it. And I'm telling you, it was just fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to take the rest of these little rings I have here and just layer them on the side. I wanted to get the main ones on top of the pork chops themselves. And then you just go ahead and layer the rest of these just around where you see areas that can use a little onion flavor in it, alright? Like we're doing there. Alright, there's our onions. Now we've got our mushrooms. And we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and just put them on top. There's no rhyme or reason to this at all. You can just take a handful and just kind of sprinkle them wherever. You want to get the top of these pretty much covered with the mushrooms though. That's why we've got 2 cups of these, because there's plenty to go around here for sure. Okay? Now, like I said, when we get done here in a second, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tell you what you need to do for the final process before we put this in the oven. And speaking of ovens, at this point you should go ahead. Onions. I'm looking at onions and talking ovens. I love it. Anyway, speaking of ovens, when you get to this point here, you want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. I should do probably a little less talking and a lot more focusing on what I'm doing here. And we're just at the point of covering this completely. I've just got another handful of my mushrooms here. There we go. And that's going to be perfect, just like that. All right. Now, we've got our mushrooms. Move this over as well. We've got our mushrooms on top of our onions, which are on top of our salsa orange marmalade mixture, which are on top of our lightly browned and seasoned pork chops. We got a little bit of a apartment going on here, don't we now? Now, what you want to do is you want to finalize this by go ahead and putting on a sheet of aluminum foil to cover this completely. Now, you want to cover this because you want to keep everything moist. You kind of want to do this in a steaming factor, and that's what we're going to be doing with all this. So, we're going to go ahead and take a little break here. I'm going to put some foil on this and get this into our 350 degree oven. We're going to bake this for 40 minutes, alright? And you should be good to go at the end of 40 minutes with this, alright? So, when we come back, we're going to go ahead and show you the final presentation of our tropical pork chops, alright? So, you don't want to miss this. Come on back. Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now, there is our final presentation of our tropical pork chops. You can see how nicely steamed the mushrooms are on top of those nicely steamed onions. And let's take a look at that salsa. You notice it's gotten a little more liquefied now that it's been cooked up a little bit underneath those nicely brown pork chops. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up a presentation plate, and Chef Ron Locke here is going to take a little bit of a Yee Haw Yum test on those and see just how they turned out. Alright, let's do it. Well, I'm right here in front of my presentation plate, and I'll take a look at that. I want you to see this before I bite into this, because what a fantastic presentation this meal makes, let me tell you. Tropical pork chops. Now, I told you the importance of leaving some of that salsa left over. You only want to use 2 cups to put in there because it is going to liquefy, but it's going to give all that great flavor into that baked pork chop that you have in there. The reason we wanted to keep the extra salsa is because you can see it makes a fantastic presentation over the top when you mix in your onions and you mix in your mushrooms that you've got on top when you take this out of your baking dish, alright? You see how that looks, and just the natural juices around it, it's got that kind of like amber, that orangish red look to it. Very tropical, just like a sunset or a sunrise in the morning. But I'm telling you, this is fantastic. Now, just to make sure it is, though, Chef Ron Lock here is going to take a taste of this and see just exactly how it turned out. All right, so I got my fork, I've got my knife. Let's go ahead and give this a try, shall we? All right, let's see here. Get it this way. It looks so nice, I hate to mess this up. There we go. All right, I want to make sure I get a little bit of the mushroom here. There we go. Kind of mess that up a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and take a taste test here. I'm telling you, tropical pork chops gets a yee haw yum. It's so tender. This pork chop is so tender because we've lightly browned the sides of it, the top and bottom, give it a little bit of herbal essence to it that just really makes it good just on its own. And then you're piling on top all this great goodness, the salsa and the orange marmalade mixture. And then you've got your onions and you've got your mushrooms that are on top of all that. And it just creates this steaming effect that just gives this meat such a tender, tender taste to it. And all these great flavors. What I'm tasting right now is it's got a little bit of an orange taste to it, hence the tropical, but it's got a bite to it because it's got that salsa in it as well. It is just fantastic. You want to make a great meal that's going to just blow people away? Go ahead and serve this, and maybe go ahead and serve some corn on the side, maybe a green vegetable, asparagus, peas. How about some cornbread or some honey milk biscuits with that? Some honey buttermilk biscuits. That would be awesome with this meal. Let me tell you, I've done that many a time. So, it's great. Give it a shot, all right? All right, well, that is all the time that we have on this episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. I really want to thank you all for tuning in and checking this episode out and your support for the show. Really, really appreciate it. Like I said, we can't do it without you, so really do appreciate the viewing and all the comments we're getting on the episodes. Really, really appreciate that. So, Chef Ron Lock here, saying as I always do, I got my closing here. Get off that couch and get cooking! We'll see you next time.